flu type A.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right, it is
I don't know.
shortly after 3 o'clock. We're going to have a study session, probably on, looks like 2 issues.
Yeah.
Yep. First will be on River Festival, and the second legislative agenda, and I'll turn the floor over to Deputy City Manager.
All right, so Brad Anderson, Arts and Humanities Director, is going to do a short presentation. This comes on the heels of River Festival, and all the books are done, getting everything up to speed on the River Festival. So this is just a financial review of how things went with the River Festival. And I think, Brad, if you can hear me, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, good to go.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I won't take too much of your time, but have some good news as we wrapped up our both our fiscal and budget year. So before we go into the following slides, I'm going to go over just a couple of highlights in terms of keeping things in context. Smoky Hill River Festival is made possible by a large and complex operation. The event is built from about 5 different elements. I mean, it's more complicated than that, but 5 basic ones. Paid staff and event administration and city staff, every department of the city of Salina is involved in some way to make that happen. And we couldn't do what we do without help from the departments and the cooperation that exists. Earned revenue from the event is outlined in the spreadsheet that Debbie and Glenda had provided last week, the summary. It includes admission, booth fees from artists, commissions on food sales, and other miscellaneous sources. We have, including private contributions, and that's the next point. Charitable cash contributions represent about 1/3 of the overall budget, 25%. And earned revenue is between 38 and 40% from wristband sales, and then booth fees and others make up the other roughly 30%. So there's multiple things in place for that cash budget of $444,672.95 to play out. In addition to that, there's charitable there's in-kind contributions from retail, food service, hospitality, technical services, marketing, advertising, printing, equipment and hardware companies, and other professional service providers who discount or donate incredibly valuable resources to us. What's not included in this report, and I don't want to, you can go back 2 slides, Jacob. There we go. What I don't want to include or spend a lot of time on the budget side, but just to remind you that we use 2,000 volunteers who serve from as little as 2 hours to as many as 100 hours annually. Many of them, about 120, serve on 22 committees, and they really serve like non-paid staff. And the current value by national standards and norms of hourly rates, wages, benefits, impact for nonprofit organizations, the hourly value of a qualified volunteer is $29.95 per hour. And so if we had to pay for those 2,000 folks, the cost of the event would go up considerably. So with that, go ahead, Jacob, into the I took just a reminder of a little bit of what I've said, but also just to go over the revenue side. The earned revenue comes from those items that I've already reviewed, and for this year, 444,000 was what the total earned revenue was. The next slide. And the cash expenditures, those include part-time seasonal staff, all of our print products and technical supplies and equipment rental and porta potties and security and many different many different items that help make this possible. Again, some of those are provided in kind, or that number would even be higher. But as it is, we still spend on all of the contractual services $360,000. The lion's share of our expenses from that earned revenue goes right back out. The sales tax, some of that may call your attention, and I believe Debbie or Glenda could speak to that if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that some of that has to do with taxes that we're obligated to pay for sales. While we're tax exempt on purchases, we do get caught sometimes paying a modest amount of taxes on all of those sales and pickups, but also we are obligated to pay some sales tax for retail sales of product like our t-shirts. So, that leaves, when we take the $424,000, the net direct income, and the next slide is going to get a little bit, is going to take that number and then show an additional adjustment that's made with that, and that has to do with our part-time salaries and some of the in-kind contributions. The in-kind actually doesn't come off or add that, but the revenue transfer from the city, while we show expenses of those part-time seasonal salary employees, the rest of the city employees are not billed to the festival, and so that's shown as a credit here back. And so the net indirect income is $34,569 if we back out the part-time employees. Either way, we finished the year with earning a little bit more than we spent, so the tune of about $20,000 directly, and this $34,569 if we add back in the cost of the employees. The other indirect revenue, this 215, the in-kind expenses of $200,314. I do want to call your attention to, while that's not part of this bottom line, it's not part of the net gain, I think it's important for commissioners to know that the city staff, in addition to raising cash every year, we're out raising about $200,000 of in-kind products and services that help keep the cost of the festival down and have a direct impact on the city's budget. Every one of those in-kind expenses benefit the city by a hotel room that wasn't part of our expenses, or advertising and marketing that we're able to leverage without having to write a check to our media partners, printing expenses and discounts, and some of those play out through the rest of the year. We get some rooms that we can't use during the festival, some hotel rooms, so we transfer those to use throughout the year as we have visiting artists. And so the net benefit to the city, all of this $200,000 isn't directly related to the festival, but it helps the bottom line for the department, and it's cost avoidance for the city of Salina. So that's always good news. Go ahead. Just a few other highlights before we get into questions. We try to build a balanced budget every year. I think there's been one time, maybe in the last 20, that our expenses exceeded our income. It was, I think, before I started, or my first year, but that was an oversight and some unexpected expenses with a performance group that our staff hadn't anticipated, and that hasn't happened again. So overall, we have finished. We try our best, other than our salaries, to cover all of our expenses and leave a little bit extra by either, if our income looks like it's going to be down, then we try to spend less. And we always are looking for new ways to try to find in-kind product to help offset some of those expenses. I've already mentioned the staff salaries, so go ahead, Jacob. The private support by individuals and businesses is incredibly important, and we have about a 90% donor retention rate on those private donations from businesses and individuals, and that's 35 or 40% higher than the national average for a lot of nonprofits. Many go back every year and try to get new people because they lose others and they fall off, and we have many businesses and individuals who have faithfully given for decades to this event. And while we do lose some, or businesses close, or ownership changes, or philosophy shift, I feel really good about the ownership that the private sector has, both with in-kind and cash contributions, and don't anticipate, even with the markets being a little weird, that that's going to negatively impact. We've hit our financial and fundraising goals each year, that for as far back as I've looked. Go ahead. And I've already said this about the in-kind contributions. I just had it repeated here depending on other comments. You can go ahead and go to the next one. And don't know if you recognize the person in the middle, but I think right after she got done with the special event permit, she took about 30 years off her life, and so Lauren is sitting there in the middle at one of our button machines. Well, that may not be her. But the volunteer impact, I did look at one point, my first or second year, of what it would cost. Right now, it's $15 for a 4-day wristband. And if we lost our volunteers or had to pay for those, and we lost our in-kind services, the admission fee to the festival would be about $75 or $80 in order to cover our cost, if our attendance stayed the same. And as you might imagine, it probably wouldn't stay the same if we raised our prices that high. So go ahead. And then in terms of what's ahead, Anna and I are working right now on cash and in-kind contributions, and we'll also, along the volunteer lines, shortly after the first of the year, we're going to be surveying volunteers to find out how they want to be communicated with, what it is that motivates them, what we can do to improve that process for them and to better engage them in the process, and in an effort to both grow and maintain those that we have. Nationally, volunteer participation is down about 30% from pre-COVID, and we're seeing a similar number with the festival this last year. We were scrambling to fill some slots, and thankfully we had some redundancies built in, so we were able to cover those without too much pain, but we want to continue to increase that. We're also going to be doing a festival patron survey in 23. We're working with the research staff at Kansas Wesleyan University to do an on-site survey to better gauge kind of spending and engagement and where folks might be staying. I mean, we haven't developed all of the questions yet, but we've done this. It's been over a decade since we last did any kind of comprehensive surveys, so we'd like to learn a little bit more about how people are gaining information about the festival, what kinds of marketing sources they trust, what days they like to attend, and I mean, we can see that from numbers, but we don't always know why they choose one day over another. So we're hoping to drill down on some of that. And then finally, a new marketing committee. We've never had a community-wide marketing committee, and our first meeting was this last fall with about 18 or so marketing partners from across the community, from film and print and newspaper and radio, television, and city staff met together to talk about how we're marketing and engaging the public, and we're taking some steps to try to grow new participants this year, folks who either have chosen not to attend or that we've not made it convenient for them to be able to attend. So we'll see. Sorry, I hit the mute somehow. Go ahead to the next one. And I'll stop there and see if you have questions for me. I know Commissioner Ryan, I think you had asked the city manager about economic impact. So if you wanted to, rather than me explaining the preliminary numbers, I could give you, if you'd like to ask the question publicly, I'd be happy to do my best to answer.
Okay. What is the economic impact on the community of the festival?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. Americans for the Arts is kind of the national company, nonprofit, trusted source for information and advocacy and marketing and research. They do a phenomenal job, and we have participated, City of Salina has participated in, back in 2005 or 6, we participated in a 5-year, every 5 years they do this, it's called Arts and Economic Prosperity. And there are a 2 or 3 page survey that's done to people at all kinds of arts events. Where did you come from? How much are you spending? How many nights in a hotel are you staying? Did you buy gas? Did you get a babysitter? Did you, they ask all kinds of questions to get the best data they can, and then they pull that data into different population sizes, knowing it's going to cost more to go to an event in San Diego than it is Salina. And so on their website, they built a calculator for us. And so I'm able to plug in the $444,672 and then list the attendance of the event. And I didn't use our average attendance. So year to year, we hope this number will be higher. But last year, we were still down about 20% or so, 30% in overall attendance. So we had 48,001 persons attend. So if we take that multiplier, then according to Americans for the Arts impact, they believe that 1,078,560 additional dollars was spent in the community. That's probably a conservative estimate because we're not including the in-kind contributions as part of it. We only use the cash. And so I believe that number would be higher if we put in the total budget of the event. But that makes a total economic impact to the community of $1,523,232. And then it also breaks down based on your locale. You enter your zip code. It gives the local government revenue, and so there's $69,000 worth of sales tax that's collected, and there's $71,000 of state revenue, and that includes sales and bed taxes based on that multiplier of attendees. So I feel. I mean, as a rough estimate of what that impact is, that's about as close as I can give you. We've got to report into the state travel and tourism, and they're going to crunch those numbers for us too, and see if they have a different multiplier that gives us a little more detail. So,
Brent, I have one question. On the revenue, there's a item gift certificates, $12,000 of income. Is that
Yes.
tied to a particular expense on the other side? Could you tell who's buying the gift certificates for whom?
Yes, well, gift certificates could be used for wristbands. They could be used for artwork, or they could be used for food. I believe we still use gift certificates for food, but I can't, I may have to have somebody in the room nod their head or not if that's still appropriate. But those are prepayment of coupons that people make, and then when they, you'll also see, while it is a revenue source, it's also an expense on the other side because we reimburse the artist or the food vendor or whoever the gift certificate is done for. It shows as other income. So it's a cash in and cash out item.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Brad, I just comment, I appreciate you digging up a dollar figure like that. We always talk about things in that, but what could be, there is no way to quantify the cultural and the emotional and the spiritual value or the reputational value for Salina of the River Festival. So it's nice to have dollars and cents, but there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, when I start thinking just the River Festival, and as a rough estimate, a majority of our 120 exhibiting artists and some of the installation artists, that's 130 people that are staying in hotel rooms. Now, some of those we've gotten in kind for the installation artists, but all of the exhibiting artists are getting their own rooms, paying their own expenses. And the entertainers we provide rooms for, we get many room nights in kind, but we also have to pay some for those nights too. We don't get enough in kind rooms because many of the national chains have a blackout. And so there's no discounts and no free rooms during the River Festival because of its popularity. But if we have more than 100 performing artists or room nights, and they're staying 2 to 3 nights each, and the visual artists are here 3 nights, some 4, and then you start looking at 30 to 40% of our attendees at our last survey, 40% of our attendees came from out of county. We can only assume that quite a few of those are staying in town as well. And that's where that economic impact, that $1,078,000 comes in, is that starts adding up really fast.
On the hotel stays, Brad, traditionally,
Yes.
you have a big event in the city, say the Super Bowl. Hotel
Right.
room rates they skyrocket. Does that happen here during the River Festival? Because I've heard hotels sell out during that weekend.
You know, we have not, a few years before I started, it was fairly common that you couldn't find a room, and there were people staying in Abilene or Lynchburg. We had artists who registered late, and they'd have to stay 20 miles away to get a room. With the new hotels that are in town, occupancy rates are fairly high. I think they're in the 70% range. I don't know what they are for car show and the River Festival weekend. I think it's higher than that in the summer. But the average daily rates are fairly comparable. And the hotels, what they don't do is discount to the same level that they might otherwise. But they have been working with Sylvia Rice and Kansas Travel and Tourism to protect average daily rates rather than discounting themselves into bankruptcy. And so they've been holding the line pretty tight, but they don't, I haven't seen, I haven't heard stories of gouging or increased prices.
I guess that was another question I had is your vendors, do they get any kind of discount or arrangements for rooms?
Yeah, and I might, Anna is in the room, and I can't see her from here, but Anna may want to step up to the mic and talk a little bit. She's dealing with a lot of the hotel rooms right now, and she'd be able to tell you kind of what, but yes, I think we get a 10% or 15% discount from many of the hotels for a certain amount of time, and then the rooms are released. But
So, hi, I'm Anna Pauscher-Morowitz. I'm the Operations and Development Manager at Arts and Humanities. We negotiate block rates with the local hoteliers that gives a discount to our visiting artists for a certain frame of time. And so they're able to book the rooms saying that they're an artist with the Smoky Hill River Festival. And, you know, that percentage, I think Brad is about right, you know, maybe like a 10 to 15% the discount that they get. And that expires kind of the end of May. So if they don't book early, they don't get the discount. But that is provided to them.
Okay, thank you. And you really emphasize the importance of the volunteers, and I think we talked about this a little bit earlier with the recap of, I'm concerned you had some trouble finding volunteers this past year, enough staff. A lot of these people are going to age out of this, who've been doing it for years. And as society has moved along, we're finding more and more problems trying to find people to help. Will you consider offering complimentary wristbands to volunteers in the future?
you know, that question comes up every year. It's a little bit of a conflict in that if we're paying people or we're giving them something of value and cutting into our bottom line, then if we had given 2,000 volunteers wristbands this year, that $20,000 net revenue would not have happened. We would have lost money. And so the short answer is no, we're not considering that at this point. We do have a program, Commissioner, that if there's anyone, including volunteers, who it's a financial hardship to buy an admission band, we have private contributions from about 10 or 15 different entities in town who help underwrite those so that the city isn't giving anything away. And we underwrite wristbands, or the private sector underwrites those wristbands for anybody in need. We do have a staff member, and all of our staff, but Susan Everwine is working with a museum staff member to develop a more comprehensive recruitment, retention, and training program for our volunteers going into the year ahead. And I will also say this, I don't want to speak too far ahead, that the United Way and about 5 other agencies, including Arts and Humanities, have been doing planning to create a new centralized hub for volunteer engagement, to have a champion that speaks community-wide. They won't fill all our festival slots, but they will help raise awareness community-wide of how important it is to serve, and then managing a database to make it easier for those people who have an interest to get engaged. So I believe that there's ample folks out there. We just need to ask them differently than what we have.
Right. Okay. Brad, thank you for presenting. We have a split show this afternoon.
I know.
So,
Yep.
And
well, thank you
Anna.
very much, and be happy. I'll stay on in case Jacob is done early, and if there are any questions from the audience, then if you're doing that today, Mayor.
What I'm going to do so that we can start our 4 o'clock meeting on time is move on to the second half of the study session. And I'll put Anna on the spot so that she can answer questions of anyone in the audience here. And so they won't feel neglected or turned away. All right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Jacob Wood, Deputy City Manager. I'm going to just kind of quickly go over our legislative agenda for 2023. So this is something that we work with different organizations in the community to put together. We have the Chamber of Commerce, SCEDO, Airport Authority, City, Saline County, and K-State, and school districts, USD 305. We all get together in a room. We kind of sit down and we look at our legislative priorities, what's coming up in the legislature next year, and we come up with a document. This is a little bit different than what we've done in years past. So this year, all those entities together have decided to hire a lobbyist to kind of help us hit some of our top priorities. So those top priorities are funding for the Kansas Advanced Simulation Center at K-State Salina, funding for Magnolia Road improvements, housing, child care, and workforce recruitment and retention. So the difference in this document from previous years is we used to just kind of all those entities would put down each of our individual legislative priorities, and it would kind of just be a huge document with bullet points from each kind of different sector. What we've done this year in coordination with our lobbyists is we sat down with the group and kind of decided to make this document a little bit different. We're going to put the big priorities kind of in the front. So if there's big specific asks that we're going to have, those will be kind of in the front of the document. So for our side of that, that'll be things like Magnolia Road improvements, Holmes Road improvements, those sorts of big projects. We're also going to have some information in here about the Corps of Engineers project for the river renewal project there. As you know, we've transitioned that from one federal program to another federal program. The new federal program, which is called the GI program, requires Congress to act in order to get appropriations for that. So that's something that we're going to throw in this document that we haven't done in the past. The end of the document kind of goes towards some of those individualized items, but they're really the individualized items that have a broader impact across the community. And if I'm saying any of this wrong, Renee Drexler from the Chamber is here as well, and she's been part of all the planning and putting this document together. And I will just say the document you have is a draft. We wanted to get it to you as soon as we could, but we're still working on some of the finer points. So there'll be some additional items in here, and as soon as it's finalized, we'll get it to you. The stuff that I would like to go over with you is really the stuff that's kind of specific to the city of Salina. Obviously, Magnolia Road at the front of this document is a big deal to the city of Salina. That's a road project that just needs improvement for a lot of different reasons. There's a connection between the city proper and our industrial complex, K-State Salina. Potentially there'll be housing projects along that road, and it's just something that needs to be done and upgraded, but it's a pretty expensive road to upgrade because of the deep, steep ditches on each side. So that's about a $10 to $11 million project, and something that we will continue to put in front of the legislature and see if there's a way that we can get additional state funding for that. Holmes Road is another project that you're aware of. It's a perimeter road on the edge of town. Upgrading that road, which would include road upgrades as well as water and sewer infrastructure, would open up all kinds of area to be developed into housing. We're getting kind of close to the edges of where we have infrastructure in the community, so having that area be available for development should help with additional housing as we work through that in the future. As I said, there'll be a little bit of information about the CAP program and the Core River project. I don't have that in the document yet, but I'm working on that, so we'll get it here probably by the end of the week is what I'm hoping for. And then on the individual items, there's really not near as many as there had been in the past that are really City of Salina specific. If you go to the page 13, it's the second to last page of the document, under the heading Enhance Quality of Life and Community Amenities. So local autonomy and control, that's something that's always been part of our document, and that's really about, it's about home rule authority and just really the authority of local governments to act, to do our taxing, property taxes, all of those sorts of things kind of captured in that bullet. And then one that's pretty important to us, as The state has changed the way they do sales tax on food. We have a star bond district, so all the money that goes from that star bond district back to that project that was being taxed as food previously, we would like to continue to receive the revenue that was coming from food sales in that district. We've kind of been given assurances from the at least the executive branch that they're looking to do that, but we want to make sure we keep that in front of the legislature. So as they take away sales tax in that district, we just want to make sure that we're able to continue to pay off what's already been paid with those promised sales tax dollars. So those two items are a big deal. And then another one that we threw in here, it's under establish affordable quality housing, and this kind of goes back to the discussion about Holmes Road. So it's about infrastructure to support residential development. Right now, there's lots of programs out there. If we have an economic development prospect that comes in and they say, you know, they need a rail extension or they need a road extension, there's lots of programs that the state would help us in funding those infrastructure improvements. But there's really nothing out there that is kind of directly related to housing. And right now, that's our big need. So basically, that bullet just says that we would encourage the state or Department of Transportation to come up with ways to help us extend infrastructure to rural, or for the purpose of residential development and not strictly tied to economic development prospects. I mean, so those are really the three. I know before we had pages of stuff, and I assure you that the city will continue to monitor things. League of Kansas Municipalities provides updates on a weekly basis on stuff that comes down that would be of concern to the city, and we'll continue to monitor that. And if there's something that we need to jump on and support that's coming down through the legislative process, we'll continue to do that. But this is really kind of a bigger picture, broad. These are the things that are kind of long-term, big picture, City of Salina as a whole, City of Salina, all of the entities, items that we felt were appropriate to get in our legislature's hands. And we will be having a meeting with them. I don't know what date that is. January 5th, to just kind of talk through some of these priorities. And then I believe there'll be a reception afterwards. I think you'll get an invite to that. So just to make sure that we're at the top of their mind as they go back to Topeka here in the next couple weeks. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know Renee would be happy as well if you have anything else, anything specific that you'd like us to look at.
I have a question, but just for explanation, could you give a 20, 30-second explanation of the Tyrell?
So that is a great question, and I will let Renee do that. It is.
I looked up Tyrell, but I wasn't sure I was looking up the right one, but.
I already asked it and got a personal answer.
Renee Drexler with Salina Area Chamber of Commerce, Director of Economic and Workforce Development. I'm going to pull up, we're still kind of hashing this out, but if you're familiar with what's going on at Kansas State University Salina with the Advanced Simulation Center and the Innovation Ramp, this is a part of that, is basically putting together a compensation package or a package to bring this Tyrell company, it's the name of the company, to come in and help. They're advanced in that sort of AI field, the simulation field. They actually have two components. One does Hollywood, advanced ARI and those sorts of things, and then this group would come to help with the Advanced Simulation Center and building that up and creating, a world-renowned center here in Salina to do those sorts of technologies and provide that sort of experience. So that's what that proposal is, and that's something that we're continuing to work on as to what that looks like. So you'll see that in the final draft of this document, but it's essentially working with the state to try to incentivize this company to place itself here in Salina.
All right. I had one other question, but I'll let the other commissioners go first.
I just wanted to see if you saw the news out of Topeka this morning on the governor's initiative to accelerate the food tax reduction.
I saw the headline, but I did not read the full article. So that's something we'll certainly have to watch. At this point, that is only state sales tax,
Right.
And the first part of that becomes effective, I believe, on January 1. And I'm looking at Debbie
Yeah,
back there. I don't know if
it's
she
going to
knows.
be
No.
to accelerate eliminating the state tax and having a August back to school zero tax weekend, which is long overdue.
I thought Kansas had one.
No,
No?
we don't get a break on anything.
Okay, so like almost every
Ever.
place I've lived had one day or one weekend. The question I have is on page 11 about the affordable health care and mental health resources. That second paragraph seems somewhat counter to the city's historical position in this matter. And the reason given to avoid creating an unfair competitive environment between hospitals. I don't know many people who aren't going to go to a hospital because they have to wear a mask, if the hospital says wear a mask. Particularly in our case, if the next closest hospital is 35 miles away. But it was this.
So that came directly from the hospital, yeah, if you want to speak to
Or
that as well.
am I just interpreting the wording incorrectly? Or?
Yeah, no, that did come directly from Salina Regional Healthcare Center, and I think the competitive place of it is not necessarily with consumers, but with workforce. That when they're required to have their workforce with a COVID vaccine or having to wear a mask versus organizations that don't require that, it becomes a disadvantage to them for that reason. And so I believe that is why they have that in there. I'd be happy to talk to Ashley Hutchins, who is their kind of government affairs person, to clarify that for you and kind of loop you in on that
Yeah, because
conversation.
on the flip side of that is if your labor force is thin to begin with, the last thing that you can withstand is an outbreak of COVID in that workplace.
Sure.
So I would see it as a way to protect themselves.
Yeah.
Employees want to get paid. If all they got to do is wear a mask to get paid, they're going to wear a mask.
Yeah, and I think some of this goes back to your, the local control side of it, is they want to be able to make those decisions
I do
locally
believe
based
that's
on the information that they have, rather than that
Being
being
mandated.
imposed, is the kind of the way I read that. Or imposed differently on different people, if that makes sense.
Sure. But that did come directly.
Because
that's
that
come directly
wording
from
is
the hospital.
slightly different from
Yeah.
this wording, yeah.
Well, I'll definitely,
We can
sorry, I
double
don't have
check
the
that for
document in
sure.
front of me, so I can definitely talk to Ashley about that and clarify for sure.
Okay. Thank you. Great.
And
That's
that
it.
is it. That is all I have.
All right.
So be happy to.
Well, we could use 15 minutes before our next meeting. Be back at 4. Okay, we are ready to go. This is Monday, December 19th. This is the Salina City Commission weekly meeting. I'll ask the city clerk if the Kansas Open Meeting Act required notice has been properly provided.
Yes.
Thank you. May I have roll call, please?
Mayor Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Here.
Commissioner Linkowitz,
Here.
Commissioner Longbine,
Here.
Commissioner Ryan.
Here.
Thank you. All who are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Looks like we're just going to jump right in and get started with a public hearing.
Item 4.1, conduct a public hearing and approve the proposed 2022 amended budget.
Ms. Pack.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Debbie Pack, Director of Finance and Administration. Kansas state statute requires that to amend our budgets, we have to have a formal public hearing, and that public hearing must be published 10 days prior to that hearing date. For this particular hearing today, we published in the Salina Journal on December 6th, 2022. I'm not going to go over a lot of the details of what's being amended because we did talk about this a few weeks ago on November 28th, but for the public's benefit, I will just go through the funds and some of the other information that I have available. So for the 2022 amended budget, there are 7 funds that are requiring an amendment. The first of that is a special alcohol fund. That's a pass-through fund of revenues collected from special alcohol tax passed along to entities within the community that provide services for alcohol-related issues. The Neighborhood Park Development Fund is a fund that's also is a kind of a pass-through because fees are paid on mortgages. They did have one project in there for the Jerry Ivy splash pad that created an overage in their budget, requiring about a $5,000 increase to that budget. Tony's Pizza Event Center Fund, I won't go into the details on that one. There's a lot of information there. We're requesting a $425,000 increase to that budget for a total of $1,350,000. The Solid Waste Fund, as with many of our funds, ran into issues with excessive costs of fuel, repairs, and also they had some additional engineering services. So the request on this particular fund is a $350,000 increase for a total of $3,375,409. The Central Garage Fund, this one was directly related to fuel costs and other pass-through costs that we're seeing increases in for the year. We're requesting an increase of $385,000 for a total budget of $1,888,550. The Golf Course Fund is we're believing is about $121,000 under or over, so we're requesting an amendment of that total budget to $971,110. And the Tourism and Convention Fund had in revenues, that's a pass-through, revenues that exceeded what we anticipated by about $579,000, leaving us with an amended budget of $2,333,000 in that fund. The one thing that I did add to this report that you had asked about before was historically what funds do we typically amend. So I put that information from the past 5 years, what those funds are, and you can see there's not a lot of repeat customers in there, so a lot of it just depends on how they were budgeted and if revenues and things come in as we did not expect them to. So upon approval, the proposed budget amendments will authorize the revisions of the budgets with the state, and the certified amended budget will be submitted to the county, which then they will submit to the state. There are 2 actions today. One is to conduct a public hearing and take comments from citizens on the proposed amended budget. And the second action item is to consider approval of the amended budget by commission. I'll stand for any questions or comments or questions from the public.
Okay, what I'll do is open the public hearing and ask for any questions from the commissioners. Ask for any comments or questions from the public.
Did I understand you correctly? And you, Mark Davis, Salina.
Thank you.
Sorry. Did I understand correctly that there was more revenue in the tourism? Was that correct? That came in?
Yes.
Yes.
So instead of increasing the tourism budget, why don't you take that money that's excess and put it in the shortages? That way you're not running into having to put more taxes and whatnot later on.
So state law requires us to use those funds for very specific purposes. So you can't just take that money
Okay.
and put it into another fund. It has to be used for those purposes. So
Okay.
can't do that.
No, that's unfortunate. So, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I had one quick question. When we're looking at the golf course fund, are we just looking at the expense side and not the income side at this time? Is that correct, Debbie?
That's correct.
Okay.
We do look to make sure that in the long run that the fund does not go under their target fund balance or into the negative. But for state budget purposes, we're only looking at the expenditure side.
Because I was somewhat concerned about this fund to begin with because we didn't have the net up at the driving range for quite a bit of the year. And I know we refunded some or extended some memberships that'll reduce the income probably, so.
Right, and in the event that expenditures overwhelm the revenue in this particular year and would cause this fund to go in the negative, we would be required to then do a transfer from the general fund. I don't see that happening at this moment, but until we get all those last minute numbers in, then we'll take a look at that.
Thank you.
All right, any other comments? Does not look like there's one online. No, all right. In that case, I will close the public hearing and ask Commission, if so motivated, to...
Mayor, I move we approve the amended budget.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed 2022 amended budget. And didn't realize I didn't know the answer to this question until just now. Is this a roll call vote or just? No. Okay, thank you. Good. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. We'll now go to the consent agenda.
Item 5.1, approve the minutes of December 12, 2022. Item 5.2, award the bid for project number 22009, 2022 storm sewer repairs for $152,738.10 with a 5% construction contingency for a total project authorization not to exceed $160,375.01, and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Smoky Hill LLC of Salina upon fulfillment of all prerequisites under the bid documents. Item 5.3, award the bid for project number 22017, 2022 major concrete for $55,775 with a $2,788.75 construction contingency for a total project authorization not to exceed $58,563.75, and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Lancaster Construction, Inc. of Salina upon fulfillment of all prerequisites under the bid documents. Item 5.4, authorize the city manager to execute an agreement to purchase 6 wastewater pumps from JCI Industries, Inc. of Lee Summit, Missouri. And item 5.5, approve resolution number 22-8092, describing the corporate limits of the city of Salina.
Thank you. Is there any item Commissioner would like to remove from the consent agenda? Hearing none. Entertain a motion to approve.
Oh, move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Go to administration 6.1.
Item 6.1, approve ordinance number 22-11139 on second reading, changing the zoning district classification of property located at 1001 Schippel Drive from C1 to PC2 to allow a former veterinary clinic to be converted to a beauty salon.
All right, this was approved on first reading 1 week ago, and just check with the Deputy City Manager. Are you aware of any changes in this? Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the commissioners on this? Any comments, questions from the public? Okay, bring it back to the commission for action.
Mayor, I move we approve ordinance number 22-11139 on second reading.
I'll second that.
Right, it's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 22-11139 on second reading. We'll vote by roll call.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Lankowitz,
Aye.
Commissioner Longbine,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye, that motion carries 5-0. Thank you. 6.2.
Item 6.2, approve ordinance number 22-11138 on second reading, annexing and zoning a 20-foot strip of land in Schilling Subdivision number 5.
All right, this was approved last week as well on first reading, and
We've received no comments.
no
changes.
comments, no changes. All right, any questions, comments from the commissioners or from the public? Bring it back for action.
Mayor Davis, I move we approve ordinance number 22-11138 on second reading.
I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 22-11138. I'm sorry, before you do that, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Lankowitz,
Aye.
Commissioner Longbine,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye, that passes 5-0. Thank you. We'll go on to 6.3.
Item 6.3, approve ordinance number 22-11140 on second reading, amending Salina Code sections 6-115, 6-116, 6-186, 6-188, 6-233, and 6-234 pertaining to the permitting and regulation of horse-drawn vehicles, outdoor merchandise areas, and minor sidewalk dining areas in the downtown arts, commerce, and entertainment district in the city of Salina, Kansas. Repealing the existing sections and repealing Salina Code Section 35-40.2 pertaining to the use of public sidewalk in the C4 Central Business District for placement of certain objects.
All right, this ordinance was approved on first reading last week. We didn't have any minor changes to be made on this.
Not to this one.
That's this, okay. Any questions, comments from the commissioners? Any comments, questions from the public?
Mark Labus. Now, you're requiring a license underneath this for horse-drawn carriage. You make no exceptions to this. So does that affect when the horse-drawn carriages are down at the fair or at some rodeo or something like that? Because you have no exceptions in this law, for one. For two, you're worried about a license, a driver's license for horse-drawn carriage when you have motorized bicycles that have been ticketed before, but you require no licensing of them. Are you going to require licensing for those that ride a bicycle? There's no difference at the point of your having a horse-drawn carriage. As far as the vending along the side of the street, since when did anybody have to get permission from the businesses or an owner to use a public sidewalk that you're requiring? It's public for a reason. Shouldn't have to get permission from the business. Don't have to anywhere else. Why should you downtown? It seems to me someone here on this commission has those ties to downtown that don't like certain things. You make it harder and harder for anybody to do anything that someone doesn't like. It's all but what you don't like, not what is not right. Been any big complaints? I don't think so. Never has been. You know, it's a public sidewalk. There's more than enough room for everybody to walk. And as far as the horse-drawn carriage that I've seen and the vending, it's on a side street. It's not downtown on Santa Fe. Doesn't bother anybody. and it hasn't been on busy nights either. So I don't know why you would take this route of limiting people to conduct a business or to earn a living. That's all you're doing with this. I mean, where's the freedom? By this, you're just playing to special interests. Mr. Davis, and this kind of ties into that. Many months ago, you asked why more people didn't get involved in government. This is why. Because you no longer listen to the public. You listen to special interests. Be it Salina Regional, be it downtown, be it rentals. It's just like the housing. You know what? We don't need more housing down south. We need affordable housing. There's no shortage. There's many houses that are empty. Many landlords that would love to fix those and put them back into use. But the city has made it so hard and so expensive to do so that you've created the problem. Every problem the city has had has been created by this government. Not just this government, state, federal, but we're here. Every problem has been created by City Commission currently and previously. And this is where it can be fixed. Keep in mind, you don't serve special interests. That's not why you were elected. You were elected to serve the public. But continuously, we see it time and time again, you're not worried about infrastructure, not streets, not sewers, because there's been a lot of sewage breaks. You don't need, it's not rocket science. Pay attention to where, on Facebook or wherever else, on forums. If you have rust coming into your house, guess what? You've got a sewer line problem. You've got a water line problem. Pay attention to that. You know, it's not rocket science.
Norman Mantle, Salina. There are no qualified licensed examiners to test the horses and or the driver in the state of Kansas. What about DOT regulations? It's a transportation issue. DOT federal takes precedent over your laws. So you're opening up a can of worms. There are no qualified driver's license examiners for me to drive a drag boat in the state of Kansas or the state of Arizona or the state of Missouri. But yet you're requiring us to have a driver's license. So this is going to be a bigger issue because I got it thrown out in Topeka on the driver's license on a drag boat in the state of Kansas. They gave me a ticket for not having a driver. You don't got to have one. As he said, you were elected to serve the people. This is not your position to use, abuse, or to promote your own agenda. You were elected to serve the people. If you don't want to do this job, why don't you resign? All of you. The letters that used to be USSR stands for another country. We're going to have to change the name of the USA to something.
From an informational perspective, are there any, that you're aware of, any DOT requirements for supervision of the horse-drawn carriages that our ordinance would
Not
be
that
in
I'm aware
conflict
of.
with?
We're following all the state laws that are appropriate. I mean, so there's nothing extra that I'm aware of.
And, okay, hey, you've used,
Look them up, Mr. Woods. They're there.
Okay.
It's an agricultural issue. The hours, if you're within 150 miles of your home location, you can drive all the hours you want. You've got part in here They can only
Yeah, I'm not sure that we're talking about the same thing here, though. So the horse-drawn carriage is a commercial business license for somebody that's doing a commercial business downtown. So I think they're totally separate. I'd be happy to talk with you afterwards and get some clarification, but I don't think we're talking the same thing.
Okay, I'll talk to you later.
And as far as the city commission's impetus to take action, most of the things that come up here are brought up to us, presented to us by citizens. A citizen may not have the same opinion or outlook that you do, but most of what we handle is reactionary to other people's ideas, other people's complaints. Unfortunately, it would be great if we had the time to go on a strategic planning retreat, spend 2 weeks, brainstorm, and come back and say, wow, what should we work on for Salina this year? But 90% of our time is reacting to stuff that's brought to us. We do very little that we initiate and push out to the city. We wish we could, but that's just not the reality of this position.
Mayor, if I may,
Please.
just to be sure everyone understands, certainly the concept of public right-of-way suggests that it's for the use of the public. But it is your obligation in the city of Salina to regulate that right-of-way in the interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the citizenry. And that's the essence of your powers and responsibilities.
Thank you. All righty. We are at the point where ready for a motion on this.
Mayor, I move we approve ordinance number 22-11140 on second reading.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 22-11140 on second reading. Ask for a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Hoppick.
Aye.
Commissioner Linkowitz.
Aye.
Commissioner Longbine.
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. We'll move to 6.4.
Item 6.4, approve ordinance number 22-11141 on second reading, amending Chapter 6 of the City Code by adding an article to be numbered Article 5 regarding the authorization and regulation of special event activities, integrating the subject matter of related existing code provisions regarding specific types of special events, excuse me, including carnivals, circuses, and tent shows, and special event use of city-owned public parking lots, and repealing those related existing code sections previously required to regulate special events, including Section 06-16, Section 06-17, Sections 35-256.1 through 35-256.4, and Chapter 38, Article 4.
Right, this ordinance was passed last week on first reading, and there were a few.
Yeah, there are, Mr. Mayor, there were a few just minor changes, a couple of changes in the definitions, and then just some small clarifications. Nothing that really changes the meaning dramatically. I'd be happy to have Lauren go through those in detail, but they're really just really pretty minor changes to the language.
Okay, and Ms. Driscoll, was there anything that you wanted to address in particular? Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments from the commissioners?
I might follow up on the last comment from Mr. Labus that, yeah, I didn't write a word of this ordinance, and I see it as just a matter of maintaining order and continuity.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the public? And since you walked all the way up, if you want to say anything, you can. No? Okay.
Nope, I'm good.
All right, thank you.
And I did want to state that the deal with the horse carriage is the difference between what goes on at the fair and someone doing this for hire. And that's why the ordinance was there.
It's also worth noting that the ACE district is only within that district. So this isn't regulating anything outside of that district. So the fairgrounds are not part of that. and they are for hire, so it's different than the parades and things like that, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, bring it back for action.
Mayor Davis, I move we approve ordinance number 22-11141 on second reading.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 22-11141 on second reading.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
I'm sorry.
I realize we should have made a note of this in the blue sheet, but as relatively minor as those modifications were, we should probably note that it would be as amended.
Motion maker,
I think
Yeah, I made.
that was over here? Okay.
So I move we approve ordinance number 22-11141 on second reading with the modifications from last week.
Do I need to second it again?
Yes.
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
There we go.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance number 22-11141 with the noted modifications. Ask for vote by roll call.
Commissioner Hoppick,
Aye.
Commissioner Linkowitz,
Aye.
Commissioner Longbine,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryan,
aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you. We can now flip the page and go to 6.5.
Item 6.5, approve resolution number 22-8095, authorizing the city manager to execute the acceptance of the right-of-way deed and temporary construction easement documents as provided by the city upon their execution and delivery by the trustees for the Centennial Road Improvement north of Waterwell Road.
Mr. Stein.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This is a right-of-way and temporary construction easement for a project we're working on. Centennial Road north of Waterwell here. The Bradleys own this parcel here, and we've worked with them in the past, quite a few parcels and projects in the city as well as this one. They're currently just ag property at this point, so they felt like it's not worth a lot of money for the, they're gonna donate it. However, you know, they're gonna have it appraised, so that was really the gist of it. So we have to accept that today, and we want to get it done before the end of the year. They want to have it as a 2022 donation. And the hope is eventually they've got some plans to possibly develop that into residential housing. So they'll hire an appraiser and hopefully get that gift completed in the early 2023 in time for tax time, I guess, basically is the way I understand it. So just a little bit more about the project. This is about a half-mile improvement from Centennial, on Centennial from Waterwell to the city limits. Right up here is the Schwann's property, kind of in conjunction with the Schwann's project. They'll have quite a few trucks coming in from this area. The county has agreed to partner with us on this project as well. And we're nearing the final design phases and hope to get it advertised and bid late this spring or early summer. And got a lot of utilities in that area that are a challenge right now, but that's really that's where we're at on the update side. And it's just one. Luckily, we only need one parcel or one right-of-way deed on that east side, which is all the Bradley Trust. So we're thankful for their donation. Any questions?
Any questions? All right, any questions, comments from the public?
I got one. Okay. Might not be related, but there's something going on out there on Waterwell right now. Is that related to this?
What part of Waterwell do you think?
Just to the west of there, or east of there,
East of there?
right out by the training range and.
Yeah, I don't think that's
Centennial?
part of this project. It looks like they're just doing improvements to the shoulders. I don't think that's part of this.
It's not part of this, I don't believe. Yeah, I was thinking maybe there's some utility work going on in the vicinity, but if it's over in that area, no,
So is Waterwell the county's?
it is the county's, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a landfill haul route as well, so we partner with them on it, but they do all the maintenance on it, basically. Any other questions?
Commissioner Hoppick, did you have a comment? No, okay.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments from the public? All right, any action to be taken?
Mayor, I move we approve resolution number 22-8095, authorizing the city manager to execute the acceptance of the ROW and TCE documents as provided by the city upon their execution and delivery by the trustees for the Centennial Road Improvements north of Waterwell Road, KDOT project number 85U-211 9-01 and city project number 21025.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 22-8095 as described. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. 6.6.
Item 6.6, authorize the city manager to authorize the purchase of 5 Lucas Mechanical Cardiopulmonary Resuscitation Chest Compression Systems and 5 Eligard Heads-Up CPR Patient Positioning Systems in the amount of $102,557.40.
How you doing?
Davis, Commissioners, thank you. Shane Pearson, Salina Fire Department. So the item before you is stated, the Salina Fire Department's continuously seeks evidence-based procedures to remain on the forefront in providing pre-hospital emergency medical services to the citizens, visitors of Salina and Saline County. This includes continuously seeking to improve the outcome and survivability of patients who suffer or experience cardiac arrest. Chest compressions provided during cardiac arrest that are delivered manually require rescue personnel to kneel in an upright position with the rescuer's arms extended over the victim's sternum, then bending at the hips to create downward pressure on the victim's chest. The rate and depth of compressions in cardiac arrest, when provided manually, can at times become a physical challenge, as the rate of compressions need to be greater than 100 beats per minute, but less than 120 beats per minute. Also, achieving continuous high-quality compressions can be mentally and physically demanding, leading to rescuer fatigue when providing CPR. Studies show the individual rescuer's ability to deliver adequate compressions decreases significantly 1 to 2 minutes after initiation of those manual compressions. The American Heart Association recommends switching rescuers who are providing manual compressions every 2 minutes. And additionally, attempting to deliver manual chest compressions during ambulance transport of cardiac arrest victims is difficult at best, as well as ineffective. Compared to manual CPR, mechanical chest compression systems are able to provide consistent, high-quality chest compressions following American Heart Association recommended rate and depth, while also allowing for chest recoil. Manual CPR, on the other hand, is typically inconsistent in all aspects when compared directly to a mechanical system. Consistent, uninterrupted chest compressions are recommended by the American Heart Association as well. And when properly applied, adjusted, mechanical CPR devices deliver consistent, continuous compressions throughout the arrest phase of cardiac resuscitation. Compressions delivered continuously also promote coronary blood flow, increase coronary perfusion pressure, and increase the chances of a return of spontaneous circulation or restoring the heartbeat. Essentially, mechanical systems have fewer interruptions with higher compression ratios, providing for increased and consistent blood flow to the brain. Clinical evidence has also found that changing the position of a patient suffering cardiac arrest from a supine position to elevating the head and thorax approximately 20 degrees to what is now referred to as heads-up CPR has a profound improvement in the potential of the return of spontaneous circulation. The decrease in intracranial pressure, along with an increase in cerebral blood flow from the heads-up approach, has shown significant increase in the odds of successful resuscitation and ultimately a neurologically intact patient being discharged from the hospital. Different methods of obtaining the heads-up approach to CPR have been tested. Trials of different approaches to head elevation include manually to simply elevating the head of an EMS cot, to development of a clinically tested mechanical device that slowly elevates the patient's head, combining controlled elevation of the head and thorax with an automated patient positioning system in conjunction with compressions, have shown the highest probability of success in resuscitation. Clinical research shows that the Eligard patient positioning system is the only FDA-authorized mechanical device cleared for use in elevation of the head and thorax during CPR. The EleGuard is also the only device compatible with the Lucas chest compression system. Advanced CPR Solutions collaborated with Stryker Medical and developed the EleGuard automatic patient positioning system to interoperate with the Lucas mechanical CPR device. The EleGuard is the only device currently authorized by the FDA that supports the elevation of the head and thorax in a precise sequence and speed to achieve the goal of providing what is now referred to as neuroprotective heads-up CPR. The Lucas chest compression system is used worldwide and has been one of the standards in mechanical chest compressions for over 15 years. The system is clinically proven to increase the opportunity for a return of spontaneous circulation or restore the heartbeat and improve cardiac arrest outcomes over manual CPR. Coupled together, the EleGuard patient positioning system and Lucas chest compression system have developed a system of care that has led to improvement in clinical outcomes of patients who suffer cardiac arrest, leading to an increase in the number of cardiac arrest victims that survive with no neurological impairment and eventually are able to leave the hospital. Approval for sole source purchasing authorization is also being requested. The request follows the City of Salina's single source purchasing policy referencing professional service guidelines. The above described equipment is the only system with FDA authorization, and no other manufacturer produces equipment capable of mechanical elevation of the head and thorax, while also in conjunction with a mechanical CPR device. This purchase would allow the department to place one mechanical CPR system of care on each of the 4 ambulances that are staffed, as well as one system on the EMS supervisor vehicle. $50,000 was approved in the 2022 sub-CIP budget for purchase of mechanical CPR devices, and additionally a grant was received in the amount of $62,000 for the purchase of equipment for emergency medical services, for a total available of $112,000. The total cost of the mechanical CPR system of care is $102,557.40. Utilizing 100% of the grant funds and $40,557.40 of the approved sub-CIP funding would ultimately result in a cost savings to the city of $9,442.60. As with most mechanical equipment, there is a recommended life of service associated with the equipment. Stryker Medical has been authorized to provide an 8-year life of service life for the Lucas devices, and Advanced CPR Solutions is FDA authorized to provide a 5-year service life for the EleGuard system. Both companies state that these authorizations are based on frequency of use, maintenance cycles, and overall general care of the equipment. There's also extended service agreements available for the equipment that will be taken into consideration in the future. Staff has identified the following options for the City Commission's consideration. Item number 1, approve the motion authorizing the city manager to purchase 5 Lucas mechanical cardiopulmonary resuscitation chest compression systems and 5 EleGuard heads-up CPR patient positioning systems for a total of $102,557.40. Approve the motion authorizing city manager to purchase the 5 Lucas mechanical cardiopulmonary resuscitation chest compression systems and 5 EleGuard heads-up CPR patient positioning systems for a total of $102,557.40 with amendments the City Commission deems appropriate. Item number 3, postpone the consideration of the proposed purchase to a specified date and time and provide staff direction regarding additional information or amendments the City Commission would like to request for further consideration. Or option number 4, take no action and in effect disapproving the proposed purchase. Staff recommends action item number 1. I would be happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions? These are 2 separate, if you were buying them through the mail, there'd be 2 separate boxes.
2 complete separate pieces of equipment, yes. But they work in conjunction together. They actually attach to each other in essence.
Except for their warranties.
Except for what?
Their warranties, one is 5 years and one
Correct.
is 8.
So they're from 2 separate companies as far as the manufacturing, but they've been designed to work together and attach to each other.
Okay.
Sounds like we've come a long way since the days of the thumpers.
Absolutely. The devices now, these are battery operated. They last as long as battery life will allow them, which is hours. The days of the old thumper that were oxygen driven, You were at the mercy of oxygen that was, under pressure in an oxygen tank compared to the potential of running out of oxygen because of driving the thumper and not having oxygen for the patient at some point. So yes, lots of updates.
May need to come to the hospital and give a little update to the physicians on staff.
I would urge people that are wondering about this to look this company up and view the video. That's what I did, and
On the entire system, on how it works
yeah,
and what it does?
Yeah, 'cause I'd never heard of anything like it before, and I don't ever want to wake up seeing that thing pounding on me. It is serious. I guess my question is the source of the grant funding?
I'm going to defer to the finance director.
It's just there, huh?
I believe the deputy finance director, I don't know that it was CARES or ARPA money. I believe it's CARES or ARPA money earlier in the year that was received. I believe initially maybe identified for a different project for EMS equipment that we'd already purchased with other funding that was made available.
Okay.
So we
Right.
hope to utilize it for this.
And what kind of training do you anticipate will be involved with this?
So that'll be in-depth training. Both companies will come in and provide hands-on. They've got a clinical education team that will come in and actually provide that education to the entire department over the course of all 3 shifts and ensure that we have adequate education and training on the equipment ourselves, as well as to be able to train new employees as they come on board and reevaluate the training as it goes forward.
Good.
Is there someone within the department that's more or less a trainer for things like this that?
Yes and no. All 3 of the
consistency.
EMS supervisors, the EMS shift supervisors are identified as they help educate everyone else. We've got several paramedics that have all taken additional classes to be able to teach continuing education and that sort of thing throughout the department for specific to emergency medical services and EMS continuing education.
Just shows how far ahead of the curve Salina Fire Department has been, certainly for the last 10, 15 years that I've been noticing, and continues to be.
We've had a few other instances that we were one of the first agencies in the state to deploy a piece of equipment or different technology, and this is, if this is approved, this will be another one of those items that we will actually be the first ambulance service in the state of Kansas to offer this type of technology with both components working together. But many agencies have different types of mechanical CPR devices, but this will be the first that combines both pieces of equipment into one package.
Is there any information on what the time is to deploy it?
If approved, the February to March timeframe.
No, I mean, you're on a call.
Oh, as far as our timeframe?
Go get the Lucas.
So average deployment, they say, is less than 2 minutes. So the process, the protocol for us, we do 2 minutes, at a minimum of 2 minutes of manual CPR anyway. So as that process is going on with 2 to 3 individuals doing that, then we've got other individuals
Comes off the truck, set up in 2 minutes.
Manual CPR, manual compressions will be provided until this is set up and ready to go.
Okay.
But it doesn't take long.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the public?
Oh, sorry.
You're fine. Ben Reynolds, Salina. Commissioner Lombine asked the question that I was going to ask if there was going to be training. Just a note, this is a no-brainer. Basically, if you're saving lives, going to save one life with this cost, then it's well worth it. So ITAD, my continuing education that I needed to keep my plumbing license, I actually did some continuing education this summer and took a CPR class. And so I know what it takes to do these compressions and how tough it is on the body, especially if the person is not responding right away. So in my opinion, this is a no-brainer.
This unit's going to break ribs.
Manual CPR.
Listen really well.
Thank you, John Blanchard, Salina. First of all, this really is, I mean, technology is amazing, and I appreciate that we're trying to find the best for the citizens. I have a couple of questions, and one of them is geared more towards what should citizens expect, like differently if they're calling someone, are they going to say, hey, you're not doing anything, you know, that kind of thing. What should they expect? And also, you know, a lot of times there's multiple victims in if there's a car accident or a multiple victim thing. If we only have 5 of them, how will you set that up? Will it be like a triage situation, or what can the public expect for when they're deployed if there's only 1 per vehicle and then 1 with you? How would it be if you have multiple victims, and what are the expectations there? And then I just have one quick comment too, since the fire department is here. There was an item a while back about tree pruning for through the Parks and Rec and Public Works. And I still fully support that we do that, but I was informed that our new chief had a significant part in getting the ball rolling on making sure we get those trees cut down, because it affects fire department equipment, which is much taller than most vehicles. So I would just like to express my appreciation to the new chief for bringing that to sort of closer to the top of the list for making sure we get some of those trees cut down and pruned. Thank you.
Mr. Mantle, I'm going to get Mr. Pearson to answer that last comment there.
So the first question was multiple patients in this type of situation. If it were multiple traumatically injured patients, one of the contraindications to the utilization of any mechanical compression device is traumatic cardiac arrest. So car accident, anything that would have caused that patient to suffer cardiac arrest and the means was trauma related, this equipment's contraindicated. So we would not be able to utilize this equipment in that aspect. The equipment is focused on sudden cardiac arrest, single sudden cardiac arrest patient, which there are times we've had more than 1 cardiac arrest at the same time in the city, one at one end, one at the other end of town, that sort of thing. So that's not unheard of. So that's the goal with getting 5 of these, so 1 for each frontline ambulance and 1 for the supervisor vehicle that, if needed, would be able to be deployed as well in a situation similar to that. That kind of, does that answer?
Very much so.
Okay. You want to touch on the tree topic, or?
No,
Okay.
we'll just say thanks to the chief
Okay.
and keep
Sure,
moving. All right,
absolutely.
thanks. Okay. Mr. Mantle?
Norman Mantle, Salina. That's my concern too, the injuries that it can cause, because there will be somebody you cannot use a device on. If it's going to cause injuries, it might kill him.
I would dare say that if he is being considered for this machine, if nothing's done, that's a foregone conclusion anyway.
Then we got a liability issue.
Can't sue God. Not successfully, anyway. Okay.
If you like, I can touch on that item as well. So there are indications and contraindications, just like any other piece of equipment. So there are contraindications to the equipment. Patient size may be one of those. Those are all things that we have to take into consideration. At the end of the day, this piece of equipment would absolutely do the most good for the most amount of people. Is it available for 100% of the population? Absolutely not. There's I don't believe any equipment out there that would ever be in this capacity able to be used on 100% of the population, whether small to large. So those are all taken into consideration by the crew when they respond on those incidents, and they have a very good, clear understanding of what type of patient this device can go on and be utilized for.
All of our city departments have regular training. and learning, but I guess I have the most personal experience receiving patients who have been evaluated and triaged by our fire department, and you just have no idea of how well-trained these folks are. I'd put them up against any Army unit in the field anytime. No one online. Okay. Bring this back for action.
Mayor, I move we approve a motion authorizing the city manager to purchase 5 Lucas mechanical cardio pulmonary resuscitation chest compression systems and 5 EL-Guard heads-up CPR patient positioning systems for a total of $102,557.40.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to authorize the city manager to authorize the purchase of 5 Lucas mechanical cardiopulmonary resuscitation chest compression systems and 5 EL-Guard heads-up CPR patient positioning systems in the amount of $102,557.40. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you guys, thank the entire commission and city administration for your support of the department. We greatly appreciate everything.
And knock
Thank
on
you.
wood, we hope we don't have any personal experience with seeing how well they work. Unless we need them. All right, 6.7.
Item 6.7, discussion of election of governing body chair/mayor.
Did you?
I don't have a whole lot to give you here on the background. Obviously, last week, Commissioner Ryan indicated that he was not going to seek the office of mayor next year, and the commission asked that we place this item on the agenda. As far as the code of ordinances goes, basically, the code says that the governing body will choose from among themselves who will be the chairperson or the mayor for the governing body. It doesn't prescribe a time. It doesn't prescribe really anything else. It just says that they'll do it. It doesn't prescribe any process for that. What we've done previously in the past is the board has taken nominations, and they've taken all nominations, voted on those nominations, and moved forward in that manner. And that's generally done in the first meeting in January when the board changes over. Historically speaking, that's been the vice mayor has moved to become the mayor, and then the highest vote getter from the previous election has moved to the vice mayor, and so on and so forth. But that's not written in code anywhere. That's not written in any of our rules or procedures. It's really up to the governing body to choose how it is that they would like to move forward. As far as the parliamentary procedures part of this, Robert's rules, Greg can give you any details on that side of it if you have questions about that and how we move forward. Other than that, this is really a governing body decision, and I think we'll sit back and let you have a discussion. So,
All right. Well, the city commission has been in this situation before, but I would dare say each time we go into this, we're going into relatively uncharted waters, primarily because we don't have anything written that prescribes our course through this. For those who aren't aware, the position of mayor is probably more analogous to a chairman of the board. The mayor in Salina does not have any more of a voting authority than the other 4 commissioners. As I told my niece, when I was the mayor before, I don't even have a key to the building. All right, so it's not a mayor in the sense of a mayor of Mayberry, Andy Griffith show where the mayor does everything. The mayor is a representative of the commission, and in many public events is the representative for the city. So there is a lot of extra activities that the mayor is expected to participate in. The other commissioners are usually invited, depending on the nature of the event. But certainly one of the major duties of the mayor is to conduct these meetings. And 90% of our meetings go very easily. It's the other 10% that you want to train for, and that training usually occurs during the vice mayor tenure. Although when I started in position number 4, I was watching everything the person in the middle was doing. So, oh, okay, so that's what you do in that situation. That's what you don't do in that situation. And you learn to have your eyes go back and forth between the city attorney and the city manager, because if you're really going off the deep end, one of their body postures is going to change. It is nice. This is a wonderful city to be the public face of, and I can't tell you, it's a good feeling to go somewhere and say, yeah, I'm the mayor of Salina, Kansas. This city is held in high regard across the state. So, I get congratulated for things that I really had that little bit of a piece as far as making happen. But people remember what the commission did. They don't necessarily remember what your vote was. They don't remember what commissioner was for or against it. When we make a decision, it's my opinion is, once we make a decision, it's a commission decision. And our job is to, uphold the law. And if we get to the point where the law isn't good, then we do have the right to sometimes change the law. In this situation, we're going to go down the road and let folks give their opinion. I'm going to take the prerogative of giving mine first, and these comments are not directed towards individuals, but more the position. I would be somewhat worried if I would be doing a disservice to someone and finishing their first year in the commission to put them in the mayor's position. It might not really be a fair thing to do, and that obviously would be directed towards Commissioner Lombine, because you're the only one who would fit that description on this board. It's kind of hard to make anonymous comments when each comment is directed towards only one person who could possibly fit that description. There are a lot of committees we serve on, a lot of procedures, Robert's Rules of Order, just a lot of stuff. And the good thing is, it doesn't really matter whether we agree on votes, disagree on votes, because we still have the same ability to cast the same 20% vote, no matter who's sitting in this chair. If we were to look for, if we move 2 people up, we then get out of sync with our election process, and I guess that might lead to a situation where you'd have potentially a first or second year mayor. I guess we wouldn't have any 5th year seniors, but it throws the math off a little. We'd have to figure out how to realign. As far as experience doing the job, of the 3 of us, Commissioner Ryan has already made his intentions clear. There are 2 of us who have done this before, and I think would have the experience to do it. That would be Commissioner Hoppick and myself. I would think this would be a unique enough situation where we might have to truly chart new waters and preserve the experience gathering tradition and keep Commissioners Longbine and Lenkiewicz in their positions. And Commissioners could feel free to nominate whoever they wish, but that would just be my personal opinion on this. Now, there are about 3 or 4 or 5 ways that this could happen. a lot of folks after a year in this position are ready to have someone else take over. But it's something, if I was drafted to do it, I would do it, but we do have an option here, and an option with experience, having been mayor before. I'm not making any motions, just getting the conversation started. Unfortunately, this would be something I think the five of us would love to go in that room and sit and talk amongst ourselves, but we can't. So this may be 5 to 10 minutes of uncomfortable comments for some of us, but I expect to be friends with everyone when the meeting's over. That may be, I'm an eternal optimist. I'm going to just start in order of experience, or years of experience. Commissioner Ryan.
Well, I feel like I should apologize again for putting my fellow commissioners into this spot, but
we'll accept that.
But in some, and as I think I said last week, I feel pretty much as you have expressed, Mayor Davis, that I think that we should put somebody experienced into the position and maintain the same order that we've had in the past. I think that suits the commission the best, and it also has the most likelihood of reducing any future conflict with a potentially completely different commission up here. So I would like to see a former mayor take that position, and that's my opinion of that. No disrespect to Bill at all. None of us ran to be mayor specifically. I think we ran to be city commissioner, and the method that we used to place a mayor and a vice mayor has served us well over the years, and we ought to continue that. I would say that I did bring it up when I did, because in the past and from experience, we've all seen the incoming mayor know who they are, and the vice mayor, and that has led to some celebration for them taking that position. So that was helpful to staff to plan for that changing of the guard, and also for the individuals that took those roles. Mayor, you had a pretty nice mayoral party after you were sworn in the last time. Right. And I think I felt like that individual ought to have the opportunity to celebrate taking the position, and the vice mayor as well. So we can certainly decide this on the day of, but it just seemed useful to entertain this discussion this evening, if just leads to smoothing things out and everybody knowing where they are for the new year.
Commissioner Hoppert.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say I'm honored to have both Commissioner Ryan and Mayor Davis to feel like it would be beneficial for me to serve as mayor. That means a lot after serving with both of you for the last 5 years. If nominated, as I stated to Commissioner Ryan, I would serve. I do believe that serving as mayor is, as Mayor Davis said, your primary goal is to run a professional meeting. Whether you're mayor or commissioner, as Mayor Davis said, you have one vote. And you also are to represent not only this commission, but the city at different functions, and it does take some time. I'm willing to take that time, and if so asked to do such. I did want to follow up on one thing that made me think, to kind of give everyone a little bit of my feelings towards the commission, is Mayor Davis said people don't remember the vote, and I remember when I was running for commission last time, face masks were a big issue at that time, in case anybody forgot. I'm sure we haven't. And I did vote for the face masks to come off when the county did, and 3 other commissioners voted to remain with the community having face masks until school was out. I stood by the commission, and not one time during my election did I say that I voted to have them come off prior to the commission, because I believe we are a united body, and we need to continue to support each other, whether you're on whichever side of the vote you're on. And so I think that speaks to the respect I have for the other four that are up here with me. So thank you.
Commissioner Lombard.
A year ago, when I was seated here, I was in a little panic because I didn't know how this procedure went. And I can certainly see from serving this year that I wouldn't have wanted to come in here and sit in that middle seat right off the bat. There is a learning curve to the whole system. But my concern is, I thought there was a procedure in place, a firm, here's how we do it, and we've found out there is not. So do we want to affirm this tradition we've had of the succession and have that in a firm policy? Or each year have a discussion like this? In many organizations, it's a finger pointing thing of getting people to serve. They're flipping a coin. You know, you lost. You're it. With that being said, much of the feedback I've received is people really want a different system of an elected mayor. And, you know, I don't know how that would go. I think it'd be a totally different system of government than what we have today. But it appears to me that's what people want. And, you know, when I ran by listening to people, and I continue to listen to people. But I will, you know, if it's important to maintain this level of succession and experience going down the line of how we've done it in the past, the highest vote getter and the second, you know, I'm okay with that. And, you know, if Commissioner Hoppick is willing to serve and willing to put in the time, I'm okay with that. 'Cause it is a time commitment, and it is a lot of work. And Mayor Davis, I don't know how you do it, but I had thrown out there that, well, you could just stay on, but you've served your time.
I guess we'll leave our wives' comments out of this then. Okay. Commissioner Lankowitz.
Please do.
Please do.
I really don't have much to add other than the comment I made last week. I still stand by. And I think it's worth mentioning that the schedule that we mentioned, where if Commissioner Ryan were to step in as it was originally set up, then Commissioner Longbine would move over to Vice Mayor, and then, you know, we'd operate accordingly. So if we, you know, per my comment last week, nominate Commissioner Hoppick, it really doesn't throw the schedule off. And also with the incoming new people in a year, it'll be potentially three new commissioners. And we are potentially throwing kind of somebody in that seat with only a year of experience. And, you know, personally, I think that some commissioners are more ready for that than others. And so that's definitely not a comment about Commissioner Longbine. It's more of a hypothetical, like we don't know who's going to be elected next year. And then we've kind of set that schedule ahead a year, if you will.
Thank you. And I'm just sitting here listening to one of the comments, and it occurred to me the times we've been in this road, it's been when we've been replacing a commissioner. At least in my time here, I don't know whether we've ever had the situation where the commissioner was still here, just was not going to assume the mayorship. So in that regard, this really is uncharted water. Now, we have the option of making and I'll ask the city attorney if this would be a binding decision if we were to elect positions for next year early, or
Well,
because
for
that-
all gentlemen, it sounds like we're all in agreement.
right,
But
true,
yes,
right, or if
legal would
we're
have
just
to
right, or if
devise-
just our comments can be taken as amongst honor amongst ourselves, in that this is not an organizational meeting as it's usually constructed.
That's correct, Mayor and Commissioners, and I'm going to quickly defer to Mr. Wood to see if he would rather comment first, and if not, I can address what I believe to be your question, but
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Wood and Mr. Scragg and I have discussed what is possibly the one aspect where you might be interested in staff and legal's opinion as to the matter. And that only has to do with the procedural aspect, of course. And I think it boils down to, I think you have the option of either making your ultimate determination this evening or January 9th. But I think you want to avoid a situation where you're doing that twice. Is that a fair statement of the extent of the discussions that we had, hoping to be helpful in that regard? As you will recall, the matter was placed on the agenda this evening for discussion. If it were to be your preference to address it in terms of a vote yet this evening, I do think that would invoke your rule that requires a 2/3 majority vote to officially advance the matter to a vote, if that makes sense, on the question of the selection of the chair this evening. But you're certainly free to do that if you wish, but would expect you'd be well served by doing it either or the other and not anticipating a dual vote scenario both this evening and on the 9th.
So if I'm reading you correctly, if we were to do it tonight, we would have to vote to amend our agenda tonight, which would require the 4
Right.
votes. We'd then have to add an organizational meeting, let that carry its effect. Now, does that meeting have to be announced in advance?
No. No. This is somewhat different, of course, in that there's not a transition of membership on the board as opposed to the even years where you would be making that transition. So certainly I assume we would want, or you would want to conduct a similar format on the 9th in terms of comments by both the outgoing mayor and the incoming mayor. And the other aspects of that meeting, simply other than the vote, should you choose to vote this evening.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mr.
so
Wood,
if you want to do it tonight, you would be adding the selection of a governing body member to serve as the chair tonight. So that would take a vote. You'd have to go through that process, then select somebody. But we would still do all of the kind of pomp and circumstance stuff in the next meeting. So changing of where you sit and all of that could happen at the next meeting.
I feel as though from listening to the comments, I'm comfortable with what will transpire on January 9th, but I go either way.
I would echo that,
explicit
Mayor.
trust
I'm
in all
comfortable
for the-
from what I've heard that where we'll be on the 9th, and we can just conduct the meeting as it's usually done on the 9th.
Commissioner Longbody?
I think I kind of go back to my initial point of sudden, are we going to sit here and have this discussion every year that there is no real set policy? And my question is, should there be a policy?
Now, I suppose we could schedule that as a discussion item in a different manner and time.
Yeah.
I have no idea about changing.
The item has come up more than once. And it's advanced so far as to nothing been done yet about it.
Yeah.
But right, it's a discussion we can certainly
Through
schedule.
this whole discussion, I've kind of felt like I'm stuck in the middle of it. And, I guess we need to decide how important it is to keep this order of the tradition of succession.
The value that I have seen is that no commissioner is put in this position with less than 2 years of experience on the commission.
I think it's worth mentioning that this situation's more of an outlier. It's not the norm.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't foresee a situation where this time next year we're having that same discussion. To me, it's a foregone conclusion. You've had the most votes, and that would be the end of the discussion, in my opinion.
Yeah. But it's not to say this situation couldn't come up again. Like I told Commissioner Ryan last week, well, my hearing ain't that much better than yours.
Although even in that situation, we would then have the person who would have, at that point, have had 2 years on the commission, and just by virtue of flip-flopping, I don't know how many votes. I won't say you beat him by, but you but if you flip-flop those votes, he would have gone ahead of you anyway. So, and that would not be as challenging as this situation. I know you say, well, what do you learn in a year? You'd be surprised what you learn in a year, and it's. I think that extra year is quite valuable.
Yeah, and something I considered was when a person is in that seat, your focus is more on running the meeting and keeping things going rather than what you're really discussing. And
well, worse, it's both. But it's not as bad as keeping score at a basketball game where you have no idea who won the game. But I at least walk in with an idea of how I feel about these. But, there have been many times when I've heard a fellow commissioner say something a certain way, and I say, wow, I didn't look at it that way. And I changed my mind, sitting right up here within minutes of taking a vote. On 2 occasions within seconds of taking a vote. Comfortable waiting till the 9th?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. We will wait till the 9th and move on to other business. No other business. All right. Citizens Forum. This is an opportunity for citizens to come to the podium and address a topic of their choice. Please adhere to the 3-minute clock this evening as we have some extensive business to take care of after this. Anyone want to come forward?
Mark Labus, if the mayor position is basically a placeholder, why shouldn't Mr. Longbine be able to get it? I mean, it's just running the meeting. That's not hard. It's pretty much any meeting in any organization. If you are not willing to serve mayor, why are you even on the commission? Because you know that's going to happen. There's a problem with that. And as Mr. Longbine, and I agree, and I'm not the only one, this will happen again. It's happened before. So why not make it official? As Mr. Longbine said, the public, according to him, has said, make the mayor position an electable seat. And then you have 5 commissioners. That would solve this in the future, now, done, and forever. I mean, granted, we're not New York City, but New York City does it. California cities do it. Everywhere else does it. This would solve it all, plain and simple. There would be one tie between city officials and the mayor. It's not rocket science, it's fairly easy. I mean, and if you're worried about succession after that, then that's the vice mayor. After that, it makes no sense. We keep going on tradition, and we want to keep tradition because, to be honest, it helps keep power, to be completely honest. And it needs to change, plain and simple, just like the commissioners, and it's been discussed before, need to represent different sections of the city, plain and simple. Because I'm going to guess here, most of you guys own businesses, have ties to big places. You're not really a public people. I mean, you probably live on the hill, most of you. Some of you may live on the Highland, I'm not sure. I know in the past when I've talked to a commissioner, they lived over on Highland Street over my area. But for the most part, none of you are elected from north end of town, over in the west side of town, southwest side of town. You're all pretty much up there. So how, I mean, be honest, how do you represent the people? I mean, Mike Hobby, you've had to excuse yourself for numerous things, or should have, for, for building and housing, okay? Linkwitz, I don't know you have ties to rentals, and I don't know how many or anything like that. But I'm sure this deal with the housing crisis shortage helps you out, whether or not you have a management company running it or not.
Technically, it's competition, if you really want to get down to it. I've voted in favor of many, many things that have been in direct competition with my business because I can compartmentalize this role in this chair versus my role as a head of my personal business, for what it's worth.
My time's up.
Norman Mantle, Salina. This could come up again. You have to pick another mayor. Say you put any one of you 4 in here. What if you have a medical condition again, like Mr. Ryan's, and you decide to step back as mayor? So that's for next week. These electric batteries, these batteries you've got on these surveillance cameras that you're using, they will eventually break open and contaminate the soil. All the stuff that is used to make one of these batteries for a car, lithium, nickel, magnesium, pounds of cobalt, copper, aluminum, steel, plastic, and graphite. We're building these batteries, and yet we're going to contaminate the environment later. So I'm worried about, or wondering about these surveillance cameras. They got lithium batteries. Will they leak? We shouldn't even be using them batteries. They're contaminating. They're a hazard. Not only these little ones, these car batteries. You're just pushing, you're opening up a can of worms. Nitric acid, sulfuric acid, hydrochloric acid, trimethane, acetone. Maybe we shouldn't be having these battery-powered equipment. because they'll break open and leak.
I'm going to ask you only because I consider you a trusted member of the society here. How do you start your truck on your speedboat?
That battery still goes in the landfill.
But it can still leak.
Huh?
It can still leak.
Yeah. There is an alternative to them batteries.
Have you got one yet?
It's out there.
All right. No, I'm not disagreeing with the point you made one bit, but so often in life we choose convenience over, which isn't always good. But, but point well made. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I have 3 things I'd like to talk about, so I'll try to cut them to 1 minute each. First is, so I don't forget it, and I don't need to get the answer right now, but if you could address it. You mentioned, Deputy City Manager mentioned in the Police Review Board last week that we were about a month away from hiring a new police chief. On the radio, KSAL, last Tuesday, Mike Scraggs said you had already selected somebody and were doing background checks and so on. Don't know where that is, but the Department of Justice around 2015 introduced a COPS program, and it dealt with 21st century policing following Ferguson and some of the things that happened around that time. One of the biggest cornerstones that came out of that was communities need to provide more transparency. As we've seen in the past, Wichita and the current Kansas City job police chief listings, they have announced 3 candidates and provided the public to comment on those and meet and greet, so to speak. It's all about transparency and getting feedback from citizens. So if we're not going to do that and we don't select a chief with this round, if we do another round, could we please have that as a priority? Second thing, real quick, is on your succession thing. I appreciate Commissioner Longbine mentioning the public because none of you up there said anything about the voters. It's about what all your expectations were and what all you wanted. But when the voters go to the voting, to the polls, they're told when they vote that your first 2 choices are going to be mayor, and the third choice is a 2-year term. So you guys decide among yourselves how you do it, but just there is a voter out there, and there is an expectation from the voters out there. And it's not about missing out on all the pomp and circumstance. That is a personal thing. That is not moving forward. We had a vigorous discussion about this yesterday at the monthly NAACP meeting, and the president who brought it up is also encouraging a letter writing campaign. The last thing is, we've had 2 study sessions from the Chamber of Commerce in the last 6 months. One of them was about marketing, and Travis Young brought up the book Purple Cow. I don't know how many of you read The Purple Cow. It's a good book. It's about 20-some years old, but it has good information in it, and it's about how do we make ourselves remarkable to others. We've done murals, and we've done a marathon, both extremely successful, in my opinion, and I think they would agree. And those are great. We need more of those things. But the second study session was last week, and it was about workforce development. And one of the things, the causes of our lack of workforce was mentioned, labor force participation rates. And it was breezed over, and it's way more important than just breezing over. So I would invite all of you to pick up a copy of this book, and I would encourage the Chamber of Commerce workforce development people to pick up a copy of this book. Okay? It's called Men Without Work. It's written by Nicholas Eberstadt, and the original edition was written in 2016, pre-COVID. This is an updated version. I think it was published in July or August of this year, and it includes a lot of post-pandemic information. But there are things in this book that we don't even consider, and one of the things is that the federal government and the Bureau of Labor Statistics does not count people with criminal records or felons in people out of the workforce, things like that, people that are on disability of one sort or another. I encourage you to look at this book, and I encourage the Chamber of Commerce, much as they recommended this book, recommend Men Without Work. I think it contains a lot of information that is vitally important to our workforce.
Anyone else? All righty. We have what will be really 2 executive sessions for the same purpose, just that the second half of it will include the Human Resources Director. I would think the first one we should be able to do in, I was going to say 20 minutes, but 25. 25 minutes.
Do we need to have 2 separate executive sessions? I'm looking to to council, because we'll meet without Human Resource Director and then bring her in at some point. And can we have one?
And we could actually even meet with the Human Resources Director first. I mean, and then excuse her from it, or?
I guess either way, can we make one, can we make one motion to have a 40-minute, or do we need to have a 25 and a 15?
I think in that you're under the same justification for both, you could certainly, if you wish, combine that and either invite the additional staff participation at the outset, or ask that Ms. Fisher join you later, Mrs. Fisher join you later, if that's whichever is your preference, I think is your prerogative.
Okay, I like that idea. So we'll go 40 minutes and have Ms. Fisher meet with, her involvement with this could go early or second.
I would probably prefer we meet first.
Okay.
I'm looking at my
just so I can give her a
commissioners.
rough idea as to, so probably in about 25 minutes. Okay.
There's only one request here on the agenda, is that?
So,
and
so we'll make it all one for 40 minutes with the notes that the
do we want a 5-minute break or anything between? It's up to you.
Please.
Yes.
5-minute break. It'll be 45 minutes. We'll go to 6:20, including the break.
Mayor, I move the city commission recess into executive session for 40 minutes after a 5-minute break to discuss the city manager's evaluation based upon the need to discuss personal matters of non-elected personnel pursuant to KSA 75-4319B1. The open meeting will resume in this room at 6:20.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to take a 5-minute break, then recess into executive session for 40 minutes to discuss personnel matters regarding the city manager's evaluation. We'll resume back here at 6:20, And I would not think that we're going to take any public action at the end of this. You have to be highly unlikely. Just in case that influences your decision to stick around or not. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we are after 5-minute break in executive session. back in regular session, and we'll request a short additional executive session.
Mayor, I move the city commission recess into executive session for 15 minutes to discuss the city manager's evaluation based upon the need to discuss personal matters of non-elected personnel pursuant to KSA 754319B1. The open meeting will resume in this room at
6:37.
6:36.
Yep, second?
6:36.
Okay. I moved and seconded to recess into executive session to discuss personnel matters as previously described. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, be back in 15 minutes. we are back in regular session and do not have any action to take today. We will set up, actually, I'll just leave it there. We don't have any action to take today. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
We adjourn.
I'll second that.
All right. Anyone not want to go home? We are adjourned. Thank you.